break out in the Middle East.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are unpacking a very statement from Donald Trump that has got everyone talking. He said, "They are not back by the time I get back into office. All hell will break out in the Middle East." This bold warning has sparked reactions from all sides. So what did he mean and how are people responding? Let's dive in.
We say all hell will be paid, that all hell must be paid if they don't release the hostages.
Well, do I have to define it for you? Look, all hell will break out. If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is.
Trump. Woo-wee. Let's talk about it. Listen, hey, everybody can say what they want. They can feel how they feel. But one thing they can't take away from this motherfucker right here, he a motherfucking gangster. You hear me? If I was still in them fucking streets, that's the partner I want, bruh. No man left behind. You understand me? Fucking with my fam, fucking with my people. We gonna set this bitch off like little Boosie and you heard me? He about that. Listen. Dude, a gangster. I salute it. I respect that. You know, I might not like everything he do. I might not like everything he say. But, yo, let's talk about it. Shit.
Is Trump threatening to bomb Gaza? What is he talking about? So he said there's a possibility that he would use violence on Greenland and Mexico to get territory from them, I guess. He wants Panama. Canada, he's not going to use. He's going to use economic pressure to annex land from Canada. Like what?
So Donald Trump has literally just done a press conference from Palm Beach in Florida, and his special envoy to the Middle East was there. Now, he was speaking about how the negotiations are going to try and get a ceasefire deal in Gaza, and he said they are looking positive, and hopefully by the time of Trump's inauguration there should be a deal. Now, Donald Trump took the mic and he said that if there is not a deal by the time he is in the White House, then all hell will break loose in the Middle East, and it will not be good for Hamas or anyone. With this pressure coming from Donald Trump to get a deal done within less than 2 weeks, I mean, it does raise questions and concerns about whether there will be a viable ceasefire. Now, the ceasefire is not just about getting the hostages out, it's also about the Palestinian people, what they have gone through, and rebuilding Gaza. Is this going to be neglected just to try and keep Trump happy?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for We Told You So, Episode 7. Now, while I tried to warn people for months here, the people on the far left who were not going to vote for Kamala Harris, I tried warning them that the Palestinians in Gaza already wanted Kamala Harris to win. In fact, they wanted anyone except Donald Trump. But people on the far left still continued to do things like not vote or vote for Jill Stein and completely act against the Palestinians they supposedly care about. And now, after Donald Trump's win, in places like Chicago, we had Palestinians protesting his win. While all these people on the left were riding on their moral high horses thinking that not voting for Harris was going to send a message that we draw the line at G-side. Yet the Palestinians here are pretty pissed about people's decision to stay home and allow Donald Trump to win. Especially when everybody was showboating and pretending they cared about Gaza. And really, they just opened the doors and gave the keys to the authoritarian who told Netanyahu, do whatever you have to do to win. He's not going to stand in Netanyahu's way. He's not going to issue any restrictions on weapons like Biden did. He's not going to speak out on a ceasefire like Kamala Harris did. He's not going to build a new port for the Palestinians in order to get them aid and food. He's going to sit back and watch Netanyahu destroy Gaza so that he can build beachfront properties. And all these people on the far left who were pitching a fit about Kamala Harris and the Democrats just handed the country over to the guy who is going to guarantee the destruction of Gaza. I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. The Watermelon Brigade's tactics and their concept of their plan was entirely brain dead. Mainstream media is also finding out after the fuck around phase, where they decided for years, especially leading up to the election, to not hold Donald Trump accountable for any of his fascist rhetoric or the things he said he was going to do, trying to keep themselves relevant just for money and clicks. Meanwhile, Trump has many times issued threats, including recently, about putting the crosshairs on the media, completely taking away freedom of the press and having journalists locked up. In fact, he wants governmental control over the FCC to have state-run media, just like in Russia and North Korea. We told you so. And while it still does not make any sense that Kamala Harris would have lost every single swing state, the only one that would have made sense to me would have been Michigan because of the large Arabic population there that had been brainwashed into thinking that Harris would be a worse choice for Gaza. However, once again, I have to point out that these Michigan activists who voted to abandon Biden and abandon Harris was started by treasonous Trump humper General Michael Flynn, who had been courting the racist MAGA mayor of Hamtramck and the Arabic community for a few years now, since about 2021. He got that Muslim mayor who endorsed Trump to tell the citizens of Hamtramck and the surrounding areas that they should vote for Donald Trump. Across the country, the trend was that Muslim and Arabic voters were actually endorsing Kamala Harris. But this had a big impact in Michigan. Tons of Muslim and Arabic voters turned out against their own interests to vote for a man who actively wants to deport them and ban them from the country. Make that make sense. We told you so. Jill Stein ended up winning 22% of the vote in Dearborn, purely from people voting third party because they were told not to vote for Harris. And they thought that voting for Jill Stein would somehow not result in a Trump win. These Jill Stein voters are now regretting their decision as they realize, as people like I have said multiple times in the past, that Jill Stein is a grifter and a Russian asset. She's a hypocrite who does absolutely nothing for 4 years and then shows up a couple months before an election to siphon votes from the Democrats, jumping on the bandwagon of whatever the latest hot-button issue is, like Gaza. She started saying, "I'm going to be an anti-G-side president." She siphoned off about 30 to 50,000 votes in several states. She knew she was never going to win the vote. In fact, as I've stated before, there was a Green Party rally about a month before the election where Jill Stein spoke, and the speaker before her said, "We are in no position to win the White House. They know that they are not going to win the presidency. Their only goal was, quote, to do something historic and take away a Michigan victory from Kamala Harris." They knew the entire time that they were helping Trump. Yet what does Jill Stein have to say about the election results? She said, "Once again, the two-party system has delivered a disastrous result for the American people. The Democrats have no one to blame but themselves for losing to Trump again." Again, after this woman does nothing for 4 years and then just shows up to complain about Gaza, pulling votes away from the Democrats and then blaming the Democrats that it's their fault. Now that she got all that money from your donations and she lost, she can now slink back into the woods for another 4 years, and she can come back a few months before the election in 2028 to sucker you guys all over again into throwing your vote away. Meanwhile, Salon actually did a nice little big piece about the 6 big lies that won Trump the election, and how a lot of people fell for his gaslighting. The meat and potatoes of it being things that he said like, "I'm not perfect," which means your expectations that I behave like a human are unreasonable. Confronted with bad things that he did in the past, he would say, "This is more than a decade-old video," which means it was a long time ago, so why are you fussing about the things that I've done in the past? These words do not reflect who I am. That actually just translates to, the reality that you just experienced didn't actually happen. Don't believe your own eyes and ears. Donald Trump has been telling his followers for years to ignore what's happening right in front of their face, and they dutifully did. He told them that the prices were going to go down, he was going to make the economy wonderful, even though the economy's already been doing great under Joe Biden. And just like last time, Donald Trump is...
Oh, and to all you motherfuckers that was talking about you didn't want to vote for her because of her stance on Gaza and the Israel-Palestine situation, Netanyahu just sent in his congratulations to Trump and said that he cannot wait to continue their friendship. So, good job.
Alright, Donald Trump's statement, "They are not back by the time I get back into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East," is a classic example of the polarizing history that has come to define his public persona. Whether you agree with him or not, his words carry significant weight, especially when they touch on matters as volatile as Middle Eastern geopolitics. But let's unpack these statements in details. What did he mean by it? Is it rooted in genuine concern, or is it a calculated move to rally his base? And most importantly, how are people reacting to it? Alright, let's start with the contents of Trump's presidency and his relationship with the Middle East. During his time in office, Trump frequently touted his foreign policy achievements, most notably the Abraham Accords. This agreement normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations, including the UAE and Bahrain. For many of his supporters, these accords represented a significant step toward peace in a historically turbulent region. Trump himself has called them a monumental achievement, and to be fair, they did mark a rare moment of diplomacy in the region. However, it is important to note that these accords didn't address deeper, systemic issues in the Middle East, such as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or tensions with Iran. Critics argue that the agreements were more symbolic than substantive, benefiting the involved nations diplomatically without resolving underlying conflicts. So when Trump warns about hell breaking out, is he references these unresolved issues, or is he merely attempting to frame the current administration as ineffective compared to his own? This brings us to the current state of the Middle East under the Biden administration. While Biden has largely focused on domestic issues and the Ukraine war, his administration has continued to navigate the complexities of Middle East politics. However, critics, particularly from the right, claim that his leadership has been less assertive, potentially allowing tension to simmer. Trump's statement could be seen as a critique of Biden's foreign policy, positioning him as the strong leader who can restore order. But let's pause for a moment and consider the reactions to Trump's statement. On social media, opinions are sharply divided, as they often are when it comes to Trump. His supporters view the statement as a necessary warning, a call to action to prevent the region from descending into chaos. Many argued that the Middle East was more stable under Trump's leadership, citing reduced tension with Iran and the lack of new major conflict during his presidency. On the other hand, critics view the statement as reckless and inflammatory. They argue that Trump's history could escalate tension, especially if it's perceived as a veiled threat by leaders in the Middle East. Some have also pointed out the irony of his statements, noting that his own policies, such as the withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, may have contributed to the instability in the region. One particularly interesting aspect of the public reaction is the way people are questioning Trump's intention. Is this a genuine warning based on his knowledge of Middle Eastern dynamics, or is it a calculated move to bolster his 2024 campaign? Trump is a master of using bold statements to dominate headlines and rally his base. By making such a dramatic claim, he ensures that his name remains in the news cycle, keeping him relevant as the election approaches. Another layer to consider is the broader implications of this statement. If Trump is elected in 2024, what would his approach to the Middle East look like? Will he double down on the policies of his first term, or would he take a more aggressive stance to prove his strength as a leader? And how would other nations in the region respond to his return to power? These are crucial questions that his statement raises, but they remain unanswered for now. Now let's shift gears and talk about how experts are interpreting this. Political analyses are divided. Some believe Trump is right to highlight the fragility of the Middle East, as it remains a region with deep-seated conflict and power struggles. However, many also caution against the potential consequences of his history in international politics. Words matters, and statements like this can have unintended consequences, particularly if they are interpreted as threats. For example, leaders in the Middle East could use Trump's statement to justify their own aggressive actions, framing them as necessary responses to perceived U.S. intention. Alternatively, it could create uncertainty among U.S. allies in the region, who may question the stability of American foreign policy if Trump is re-elected. And then there is the domestic angle. Trump's statement also serves as a litmus test for his supporters and critics. For his base, it reinforced the narrative that he is a strong leader who patrolizes national and global security. For his opponents, it's another example of what they see as his reckless and divisive approach to leadership. So what does this all mean in the great scheme of things? At its core, Trump's statement is a reminder of the high stakes in 2024 election, not just for the United States but for the world. The Middle East has long been a focal point of U.S. foreign policy, and the next president will play a crucial role in shaping its future. In conclusion, Trump's warning about all hell breaking out in the Middle East is a complex statement with far-reaching implications. Whether you see it as a vowed critique or political theater, it raises important questions about leadership, foreign policy, and the role of the United States in the global affairs. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Trump's statement was a necessary one or an over-the-top critique? And how do you think the Middle East will be affected by the outcome of the 2024 election? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I did love to hear your perspective. And as always, if you found this discussion insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis of today's most pressing issues. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.